Dude, thank you for coming.
It's my absolute pleasure to be here.
Dude, what do you say we go to the garden real quick?
Let's do it.
Let's do it, man. Thanks for coming, dude. Yeah, man.
This is beautiful. This is
Thank
brand
you,
new.
dude.
What are you looking at
Isn't
us
it?
for? Look at this.
Yeah, man. This was a horse pasture like
What
3
is it
months
now?
ago.
What is it right now?
It's a farm.
But what are we growing? And how are you doing it, man? This is so beautiful.
Isn't that crazy? It's literally a turnkey. I learned it from Curtis Stone and just like these guys who just literally go to people's backyards, which is what we do now, and just take out all the grass and then grow as much food as possible. And I've done it a bunch of times, so I know really quick ways to get it going, you know? The hacks. But it was really compacted from the horses. Smell this, dude. Tulsi. Isn't that amazing? It's a stress reliever. It's an adaptogen. So we plant these in people's gardens and they come home from,
Yeah, I just feel relaxed just smelling it.
right? And just totally get bounced out. That's amazing. Yeah, man.
I remember 2018 when we went out to a place to record videos, and I was recording on a GoPro.
Yes.
And it was at some restaurant or some place like this.
Yeah, it was a restaurant garden for Buchan. That was fun.
Yeah, it felt like who else? Who was Kevin with us too, right?
Yes.
And we were trying to film, but I had my
There's
GoPro.
some spinach, dude.
Yeah. A lot of times, it's just the same thing, trying to do the same thing, time after time, year
We were
after
doing
year,
the
and
same
just
thing.
eventually you just get good at it, I guess, or good enough for it to work, right?
This was literally what we were doing 3-4 years ago. Same thing. Yeah.
What's the difference now?
That's an amazing lesson.
What's the lesson?
The more you do it over and over again, repetition is
Right.
the mother of all mastery.
Right, so don't give up. Is the
Don't
lesson.
give up.
Right.
Keep growing the okra until it's ready every morning.
Because look at us now. This video we're making now is awesome.
I love Jay. This is gonna be amazing.
Even like walking on the mulch here, the wet ground. It's like you're trying to put me in a relaxed state by starting here now.
We should get into a peak
With
state.
this too, okay.
Do you want to try some okra before we head inside?
Sure.
Try that. It's a cooling plant.
Thank you.
What do you think of that?
It's like, hold on, I'm gonna have to have another bite of this to let you know. Hold on. Like the way these seeds inside are like so densely packed together. It's like it creates its own fruit inside of the seeds. These are seeds, right?
Yeah, it's really, super dense.
Before we go inside, why don't we just take this moment right now to talk about the creation of the possibility of urban abundance?
That's a
Before we
great
go
idea.
inside.
Exactly where we left off. Yeah, so tell me about that.
The year was 2018. 2018. No, actually, it was the year 2017. Around November, December. And Jack and I met up to do something called Create Goals. Remember that?
Yeah.
The end of the year, create goals.
That's all it was. And we would do it each year.
But in 2018, your goal was like, I want to expand my landscaping business. And the business was Jack's Garden Beds, right? You know, you knew that you wanted to do something different as a way to expand. So we created the possibility of urban abundance, which is a whole like enterprise approach to edible landscape.
Yeah, it's thinking bigger than just, hey, I need to figure out how my landscaping company can be more of a landscaping company.
Right. Instead of going from Jack's Garden Beds, meaning like, you know, I'm the supplier and here's the name of the way that I give you the product. It's like, no, what's the result? What's in it for everybody?
What are we creating?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's in it for everybody?
And it's been incredibly exciting and humbling.
For sure.
For the past couple of years, 3 years now, to see people able to get excited about that, you know? because of that, like thinking bigger mindset and creating a possibility rather than just like, oh, I'm going to work with like, how do I make a better logo for Jack's Garden Beds? But like looking beyond yourself and looking beyond the immediate, what you're doing in that moment of garden beds, right? Looking beyond yourself and looking beyond the media and
well said.
Zooming out and creating something bigger and then actually doing it and actually
thank you,
performing to the possibility. It's beautiful.
And we just began, and I began before even that 3-year period, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's just when I got involved.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
That was just the switch into that.
But totally, that was the next evolution. And what's cool is you really have helped me a lot with zooming out, like you just said, and just thinking about it differently, and not just being like, there's a difference between working in your business and then working like on your business, and like thinking about it differently. How can I bring more value to my clients, you know, or just be better, have a better customer experience, you know, instead of just, you know, texting willy-nilly. Like you really have helping me look at it like with a better scope and a different, you know, better framework.
Here's what I'll say. What I'm doing now is working on a way to make really anybody able to help someone create possibilities. Does that make sense?
Yes.
In other words, I've done that before with people such as yourself and others, local businesses, small businesses, product businesses, nonprofit, online, in person, lots of different businesses, right? And people have sort of had a certain reaction to the way that I go about doing it, and they've liked it, but they've kind of been, maybe there's been a mystique about it. But what I'm working on right now is beyond any given business and what we'll talk about in detail, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk about it in detail.
Of course, dude.
Is a system called mapping that allows anybody who wants to learn how to help themselves and help others create possibilities the way that we created the possibility of urban abundance.
Mapping.
Yeah.
Super powerful. Yeah, let's get into it, dude. You tell them about appreciative inquiry.
Okay.
Right, because that's what it takes. I think a lot of people, like just for the people out there,
Yeah.
they like literally everyone in their life is telling them, no, you can't do that. You don't have what it takes. What is like, tell them about like maybe looking at it differently.
Well, a lot of times when someone is working on their own about creating a possibility, like working on, like in their own private self before they even go out to do it yet, they meet a lot of resistance in their group of friends or family or coworkers or anybody, because their ideas are not like perfectly formulated yet. And so one of the things that is involved in teaching anybody who wants to learn how to help other people create possibilities is appreciative inquiry, or AI. You know, we need AI.
We need AI.
We need AI. If we don't have AI, we will not survive the future. We need AI.
Without appreciative inquiry, that's so powerful.
Exactly.
So what is that?
What it is, before we go inside, what it is I'll give you an example. Let's just do this, okay? Imagine something that you want to create. Just tell me what you want to create. Just say, hey, I want to create something.
I want to create a documentary about growing food at home.
An example of appreciative inquiry would be to say, what do you think you want to feature in that documentary? What kind of stories do you want to tell in that documentary? Who are some of the characters in that documentary? And what that means is I'm just giving it, inquiry is question, but inquiry is more than question. Question is question. Inquiry is like pausing to be present with questions. So it's like I'm just giving you the space to answer important questions that don't give me any basis to judge or evaluate the quality of your idea, which is what people fall into the trap of. They get into the, documentary? I don't like documentaries. Or like documentaries don't make as much as feature films. Or da-da-da-da.
What makes you think of that?
Yeah, it's like, appreciative inquiry is essentially, guess what? I support you and I trust you. Even if I have nothing to do with what you're doing, I support you and I trust you. So let me just help you by helping you see a fuller picture, by essentially giving you the negative space of that picture in the form of questions. Okay?
That's powerful. So to be present while you're questioning too. Right. I love that concept.
Yeah, to be present with the question, as opposed to like, okay, that's the question, and what's the answer? I got to find it right now. No, it's like, it's being with the question.
It gives you space. It gives someone space. You know what I mean? People, I feel like they have so little space in their environment today. You know what I mean by that?
What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So as far as like emotional supportive space, like you just talked about. we're lacking that, like growing up as kids. Like, hey, be quiet, do as you're told, stay in your seat. It's kind of the opposite of appreciative inquiry, isn't it?
Well, yeah, as kids we're given directions, mostly, or just given nothing, or just given directions, right? But
Sure.
as opposed to, like, if you think about the classic example about a kid, I want to be a this or that, a kid who wants to be a singer, or a kid who wants to be an athlete, or a kid who wants to be any number of things that are aspirational and really groovy for a kid to do. Parents are not, and principals and guidance counselors are usually not doing appreciative inquiry, because they'll immediately jump to, that's not realistic, or no, that's not good for you, instead of saying, well, what type of athletics do you think really you're most called to? Or how would singing, asking questions that simply help them formulate their own viewpoint. That's really it, because because that's creating a possibility. And anyway, appreciative inquiry, AI, is just one aspect of mapping. But I'm happy you brought that up, because actually Jack took my first class on this last year, and I'm getting ready to launch really buttoned up and great, versions of that class. But Jack took the first one, and so he brought up that appreciative inquiry.
It was a big
I'm appreciative
takeaway.
of that, yeah.
Of course, bro, because that's a big deal. Like, I want to teach people how to, like, roll this out in their life, like, actually experience being at peace with yourself and, like, an environment that supports you, people that love you. Like, how do we do that? And surround yourself with people that have appreciative inquiry, I think, is a very good way to do that.
Well, in that sense, it sounds like we share a common cause.
How so?
Well, I mean, because me too.
Yeah, dude.
For me, it's like the two words.
That's why you're here. That's why you're on the first episode.
The two, creation and evolution. Creation and evolution. It's like some people out there are focused on, like, outer results, like I want to create this or have this or build this or do this, and some people are focused on inner results, like I want to be more this or I want to transcend this or overcome this. But really, it's about both. Creation and evolution, both of those are possibilities, and appreciative inquiry is something that people can do to just sort of make it, like, to what I'm seeking to do with this is delete the mystique about it. And not have it be like, wow, I went to see this guru, or I went to see this, like, world-renowned specialist coach, or world-renowned specialist expert advisor therapist. It's like, how about this? I just had a conversation with someone in my own actual life who's just, as a normal function of their existence, able now to just help me get along, move along, creation and evolution.
Amazing. Remove the mystique from it. Just like plants. Hey, you put it in the ground.
Yeah, because
that's where it starts. Hey,
there's something really powerful to that, though, because people in both of our positions, people in both of our situations have a vested interest. I'm just going to put this over here, by the way. Is that okay?
That's amazing, dude. I love how you're playing with it.
People in both of our positions have a vested interest to make it more complicated than it is, not make it less complicated. You know what I mean by that?
Totally.
To be like, oh, well, listen, if you want to grow plants as good as I do, you're going to need to buy this thing, which is this much money, and this is it, and the secrets are inside here, and there's a balance to that, because you have to be able to do it. But at the same time, it's like, that's what I mean, we have the common cause.
I love that.
I want to put on these sunglasses while we're outside, because they're really cool. You know what I mean? So it's like, mapping is really all about creating possibilities, okay? Possibilities of creation and evolution.
Say it, dude.
Mapping is really all about diffusing the mystique, deleting the mystique for everyday people, you and I, to open possibilities in our lives for creation and evolution. For outer world accomplishments of doing and creation, and for inner world triumphs of resolution and transcendence, and just deleting the mystique and making it so that, this as normal as I just had a chat with my friends at the coffee shop. We did some mapping, and this situation is resolved now, and it's moving forward towards that possibility that we created. That's the intention. Yeah.
I love that. That's beautiful intention. Thank you, bro. It's all reflection. Everything that goes on out here is just a reflection of what we're doing in here at the end of the day. Jared, thank you for coming today. Guys, we brought you an amazing guest. We're about to start this unbelievable podcast. Jared, I love this man so much. He's brought a ton of just love and support and amazing energy into my life. I've known him for a long time. and he's onto some amazing things. So he's my first guest. I would think of him as a visionary consultant. And Jared, thanks for being here.
It's my absolute honor and pleasure to be here, Jack. And that was a good introduction, but I'll step it up one bit for a second, which is to say...
Tell me about yourself, Jared.
Well, okay, Jack, you and I have known each other for such a long time that it's almost like there's different just moments in time to completely mark the time that we've known each other. Like completely different phases. But since we started knowing each other way back in high school, a lot has changed for both of us, but a lot has stayed the same. And it's so beautiful how we just right now are both like on opposite ends of like this commonality, you know what I mean? And that's what we're going to talk about. Because like, look, you just look outside the window over here and everything you see is like green plants, right? Green plants. But what I'm working with is way more about digital, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of looks the opposite, but there's a similarity.
I bring tech into the urban abundance.
Yeah.
So it's
I bring humanity and reality into technology. That's what I do.
Totally. It's true, man. I love that.
Hey, what's up? My name is Jared Fishman. I'm a consultant. My company is called Clarity Energy. I've worked with Jack for years now. In fact, Jack and I worked together years ago to create the possibility of urban abundance. And Jack, of course, has absolutely stewarded that possibility into reality in such a beautiful way.
Thanks, man.
And that's who I am. And what I'll add to that is this. What I'm doing right now is taking the fruits of insight and discovery from the years that I've spent working with people and organizations in creating possibilities, through whether that's through organization, product, brand, marketing, design, or and just saying, okay, stepping back from that for a second and saying, what are those actual tools and principles that I would use to create success with different products, services, nonprofit groups, whatever the case may be, over the years, including Jack Urban Abundance, and just saying, okay, what are those like sort of standing beyond myself and saying, how do I break down that as something I can teach to people to do? And as a result of that, to expand the possibilities for everybody, as many people as possible, as many people as I say, who want to learn. If you want to learn, you can learn. That's what it really is. If you have the will to learn, you can learn. Because it's so basic and human.
When you're ready, the teacher will appear. When you're ready, the teacher will appear.
Some people just don't want to learn, and that's okay. It's not for everybody.
Totally.
Because look, there's people out there who do things. There's people out there who help them.
It's very true. You're in the service industry. I am too. Yeah, like people call me to fix their problems. That's all. You know what I mean? To create solutions.
Yeah.
And that's what you provide as well. But hey, dude, tell me about it. What kind of patterns have you found in your experience with working with people?
Well, basically, something that works just exceptionally well and has become the foundation is something called external cognition. Have you ever heard of that before?
No.
So basically, external cognition is anytime you're using, anytime you're writing or using an external system to expand the power of your mind. So in other words, like instead of writing to communicate a message to somebody else, external cognition is when you write to think. You like work out your thoughts, not in your head. That's what external cognition is. External cognition is working out your thoughts, not in your head. And basically,
so you're telling me when I'm doing my notes, like, oh, I got to do this, this, and that, and putting it down and kind of trying to map it, or that's external cognition.
That's external cognition, yeah.
Cool.
And so that was a really big part of the services that I would provide over the years to people in branding, brand building, product development, organization design. But that sort of became the sweet spot for me, which was like at a certain point, that's where the biggest results that I was able to give people showed up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so that's why you ask the patterns. It's really this like core principle that's the underlying thing about what I'm doing now. Like it's as if you discovered like one plant that you plant for people that's like, wow, this plant is like something really special. Does that make sense?
Totally. I love that.
And what I'm doing with mapping through Clarity Energy is providing external cognition as a service to other people. And what that means is just quite literally expanding people's thought processing power, the power of the thought process, by another person essentially just becoming directly involved in that thought process. And now what does that mean? What that means is that we were talking about appreciative inquiry. Instead of consulting or coaching or counseling even by virtue of, hey, look, here's this here's this pre-created viewpoint or expertise or philosophy, which kind of in a lot of ways cuts people's thought process off.
1,000%.
Someone comes to a coach, counselor, consultant who has a particular method or a particular philosophy or a particular school of thought or a particular whatever, and they start talking to that person, and in a lot of cases, not all, but a lot of cases, that trained professional just essentially gives them preconditioned advice, whereas with external cognition as the basis of a new type of consulting, it's really just about expanding someone's ability to see their own thoughts and to work with that.
Amazing. Empowering them instead of giving them advice and being like hands off.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
And it's so simple and basic, which is why I'm focused not only on doing it myself as like a really great, like leading edge of the spear consultant of that type.
Yes.
Mapper.
Yeah.
But focusing also on teaching people to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because
that's what I do. I teach them how to garden, so they could be more empowered when I'm not there, Like you said, expanding their abilities. That's huge. Jared and I think, tend to believe that having a growth mindset is beneficial compared to having a fixed mindset. Like, tell me how that has helped you in the past.
Well, I think a growth mindset is a really key ingredient to doing whatever you want to do. But I'm more focused on what do you want to do.
Yes.
Because in other words,
okay.
Let's say I've never been a gardener. I have, but let's say I never have been.
Yeah.
And you were to say, hey, don't have a fixed mindset, have a growth mindset. You too can be a gardener. I might be like, well, I don't want to. Exactly. And therefore that conversation, it's kind of, it's like, well,
that goes back to us saying broadcasting the message,
Yeah, exactly. But in other words, like if
totally.
That same ingredient of a growth mindset, someone might say, I don't know, what's something else people want to do? It's like, I want to be I don't know, like someone wants to be an engineer. They want to create a new kind of engineering company, let's say, right?
Yes.
And that's what they're actually like motivated towards. That's the reality of their motivation. Well, then there's of course the necessity of a growth mindset, because someone might say, oh, well, like I studied, I can't do it. I can't be a leader of an engineering company. I studied theater in school, or I don't come from a background of engineers, or I got fired from my last engineering job, or all kinds of things.
And so they tell themselves.
But once you're actually in view of the actual goal, everything becomes much simpler, because then it's what we were talking about the other day, where you're actually like, you're not broadcasting a message to someone like the way to do what you need to do is to have a growth mindset. No, it's like you're able to help someone make subtle shifts into simply seeing a possibility for themselves in light of what actually matters to them. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Cool.
That goes back to us talking about writing our goals down for the year. Like you said, when you actually see your goals, like what is your goal?
Yeah.
Like that's an amazing question to ask yourself.
The specifics matter. It's like, you think about like, what you asked you asked about patterns. Let me tell you an interesting pattern.
Yeah.
So, you guys, like the gig economy, right?
Yes.
So more and more, the economy is gigs, and it's almost like everybody is either like an actor or a crew member or a director and producer or writer, as if like Hollywood as a metaphor, gigs, right? And it's like thinking that way. It's like if you had a movie studio, it's like, well, what are they trying to make? Are they trying to make a comedy or a horror movie or a documentary? It's like so different that you actually have to start with, what am I trying to create?
Mm-hmm.
What am I actually trying to create? And then basically, look, it's like, there's what you want to create. There's where you are now directly in relation to that. And then there's action that just, if you know those two things of like, that's where I'm trying to go. And this is where I am now. And you actually feel both and can see both, not just, write them down but like, and by the way, also not, that's where I want to go. And this is where I am generally. No, this is where I am exactly in relation to that. If you like actually hold awareness of those two things, your being will just generate for you, hey, look, you want to bridge that gap. You want to resolve that. You want to make it that way. So here's some actions you could take. But then the fixed mindset stuff fits in between that. Because you might say, well, okay, I need to take those actions. You might say, if I want to go there and I'm here, these are the actions. But I could never take those actions because excuse, concept of what we were just saying before. It's not, I don't look like the kind of person who could do that, or that's not like what my family would do or have told me to do, or it's impossible at this stage of the game for me, or it's impossible for this reason or whatever. those things, like in
whatever that is.
But once you get to that point is when it makes sense to do a fixed mindset or growth mindset. Because otherwise it's just like, it's not going to like,
So
connect,
what you
it's not
do,
going to contact somebody.
I love that. You tell me all the time, it's you got to get to completion and then you could start creation, which, you have to get to, before you could go to 1, you have to get to 0. You have to like get your own house in order, right?
Well, I don't think you have to do anything, but I think that creation and completion is definitely like there is a school of thought for sure, absolutely, that I've referenced to you, absolutely, that says completion creates a clear space for creation from a clear space. Because if you think about like the Big Bang, like, right, or like Let There Be Light, creating comes really from nothing. Creating comes from nothing. So if you have not nothing, but you have a mess, you'd prefer to get to nothing first.
Yeah,
that's what it means to complete.
Like the Big Bang.
You want to create that starting point of nothing. And a lot of people are not starting from nothing. They're starting from negative in some various aspect. And it's not like but again, it's like totally dependent on the aspect or the area for a person. It could be depending on is this in something you want to create as like a business opportunity or as like a personal health goal or as like a personal relationship goal or whatever. But it's all about being specific, which is why, in terms of let me just say this one point. In terms of the consulting that I'm doing and really the education that I'm doing, I realize that like there's only so much of my time that I can apply for people. And okay, that's the case for everybody. But in this particular field of mapping, it's important because the service is very much based on spending a lot of time with someone. There's no ways around it. In other words, because it's not here's a broadcast message, go apply it. Or in other words, it's not here's some big secret, aha, there you are, go apply it. It's literally like step by step, like mental considerations and like just opening up step by step. So there's a lot of time needed. And therefore, by teaching people, you can reach people in all kinds of different industries who have interests that I would never in a million years have, or just make it happen and just improve the conditions in the world, really,
Through people,
yeah. Let them do it in their own way.
I love
in their
it.
own way,
Jared, you're the best. Dude, literally, I feel like we're both in the results business. Like, I'm here to get you results in your garden. You're here to get people results and to get clear and to really make huge, like, breakthroughs in their life. How do you see it that way, and how does that?
I think there's definitely a temptation to see it that way, but I think that some things are actually process based, not results based. And I mean, of course, like there's a sense of, but I mean, the best results are created from the best process.
1,000%.
Like Apple doesn't just like come up with the best computer out of nowhere. They have a process for experimenting and trying different things.
Cool.
And it's like, you asked me a question yesterday of like, what types of clientele do I like to work with the most?
That's a great question.
And one of them, and I really thought about this because, well, I didn't think about it too much. The answer just kind of came up because of a situation that really made me realize.
Really?
Yeah, because look, there are people who are completely fixated on results, who have a tougher time understanding and getting on board with and really engaging with something that's more process-based. But as a result of that, they lose access to the benefits of it. Whereas there are other people who actually are like down with more of a process. And so, for example, like
I totally see where you're coming from. Yeah, it's so process based, and that also is part of gardening. I say observation is half of gardening. Observation is a process, like totally. So the result is there if the process is respect.
Well, it's just realistic to say that you're offering a process because you cannot predict or control every condition which is necessary for the result to happen. You know, like
1,000%.
It's just impossible.
Yeah.
And there's a sense of like, I mean.
So to talk about managing expectations,
right. Yeah, exactly.
That's all it is. And people are so funny. Like, what do you think about? I think about all the time. There's appreciation and expectation in any given moment. Tony talks about that. Would you agree? Like, it's really, oh, it didn't miss the mark, or oh my God, look at all these blessings in this moment.
Yeah, I mean,
it's easy to say when, stuff's easy, you know what I mean? But it really hits home when stuff's hard. Like, how are we going to look at it?
Well, I guess it's also one of the reasons that I'm so keen on education with this, because the more that you put someone in control of it, the more that they can trust themselves to, I guess what I'm trying to say is like,
the higher of a price you pay for something financially, the bigger an investment you make, the more certainty you want in the result. But a lot of what this process that I've created and I'm teaching and applying and using, it's not as predictable because it really is about creating new possibilities, which is it's not like, hey, I'm going to put this plant in the ground and then this much time later this is going to bloom. It's like there's a lot. It's a growth journey for people, and it's not like
tons of
cleanly predictable. So that's really one of the other reasons why I'm so focused on, like, look, how do we just break this down to something that's not special? So you don't even have to pay that much for it, and you don't have to be like, oh, I'm going to put so much on the line, I better get this big result out of it. It's just like, I just have this process that I do, and it makes it better.
I love that, demystifying.
It makes it accelerated, and just that's
through the process you've created through mapping.
Yeah, and I'll just say too, like, when I say created, I did create the process in the sense that I created a way of, we got a drum set in that other room, right?
Yeah.
And I asked somebody the other day, like, what does a drummer have to learn? It starts with an R to become a great drummer. You probably know this. They're like rudiments, right? And what it means, rudiments, is like little itty bitty pieces that together they can combine in their own way to make something totally unique. And that's the way that I teach mapping, because really, like, it's not up to me to predict every given situation. I'm just creating a context for people to learn skills, like, one at a time, so that they can add them up together and just use them. And I'll be fully transparent. Like, working out the exact best business model for that is still something up in the air. Like, I'm considering, like, just based on even the way that I'm talking about this right now, it sounds like a nonprofit, and it's like, I've really considered that because, people have an expectation that if you run a nonprofit, it means that you're essentially taking a vow of poverty. That's not necessarily true. It just means it's a certain type. And anyway, you get what I'm saying? It's like aligning the financial concerns with benefit of something, but also with just, I want this to happen. And by the way, one other reason is, I'm sure you feel the same way. Like, you just literally, when you drive past people's homes, don't you want them to just have food growing?
Yeah.
Like, don't you just want that to be the case?
You want to live in that world right now.
Exactly. I want to live in a world where, amongst other things, you can just call up a phone number and somebody will answer from around the world who's been trained in this skill set. And they'll have a vested interest. Maybe they're on a program where they're trading time, because again, it's a lot of time, or maybe they're getting paid for it, or maybe they're like...
Sure, with DeFi, you never know how it could be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, structured.
But that's really, like, that's where I'm at right now in terms of, like, the leading edge of what I'm doing is, like, creating that structure. Because I've put all of my energy, focus, and attention into just the methodology itself, just to, like, okay, like,
yes,
the artistry of, like, this method, and it's a lot of fun. But, like, building a vehicle for that's what's right now.
I love that, man. Yeah.
It's like, yeah. Anyway.
Congrats, man. I think about, like, we've accomplished a bunch, and we've known each other a long time. Anyways, like, I read one time in 1984, George Orwell. He basically talks about the masses. It's a big dystopic world, you know what I mean? And, like, why is it dystopic? This dude basically works for the government, is trying to figure out, like, what's going on. It's from his point of view. Anyways, he said that if the proles or the masses just knew the corruption and what was going on, they just knew, if they just had awareness, it wouldn't exist. He said, like, they wouldn't even go along with it because it's so absurd. So my question to you is, do you think awareness is that important?
A situation like 1984,
Yes.
Gets created by individual people telling themselves thousands and thousands of little lies over and over again.
Wow.
Meaning, one step at a time, one day at a time, agreeing to something. I agree.
Yes.
Okay, yes, okay. Or whether they agree in truth or they just agree to submit. But again, like, one step at a time, one step at a time, one step at a time. And eventually it just becomes that they lose touch in who they actually are. They can't tell the real from the fake because they've just bought into it so many times that it's like, okay, you lose, basically.
No awareness.
You lose. Now, in the same, in the case of helping people solve, handle, control, change, create, and communicate within the situations and conditions of their lives, it's that same thing, really, where people, it's just a scale thing. The situation of, like, what you just said, dystopian, that's when that happens through, like, such an extreme extent.
Sure.
But even in someone's life where they're going one direction, not the direction they really want to go, or limiting themselves in one way or another, it's that same thing of, like, it's almost like lying to yourself about the truth of what possibilities exist.
Mm.
So it's a really interesting question and an interesting conversation, man. And hopefully no one
Amazing.
will ever need to know about 1984.
Totally, dude. And I guess I was just trying to lay it up and basically
No,
say, like, how important is awareness?
Well, man, I'm really being, flip about that.
Yeah.
Because so many situations and conditions in the present time of our society are like, mirror images of 1984.
Mm.
And so your question is, how does awareness factor into that? I mean, it's like
Yeah, like, would that be enough? Like, I guess is that enough for people to actually, because the whole point of this podcast, I guess, to be clear about it, is to help people create the environment that they want to live in. Yeah. For themselves and teach them how to do it. So I guess, is being aware of that their environment isn't like exactly fitting for them to have total peace and, total prosperity and total happiness, is awareness of that the first step? Or just like, I guess framing it like that, like how
is noticing
enough to spark change?
Well, remember how we talked about desired outcome and present reality?
Yes.
The space between those things isn't actually a space, because a space is empty. The area between is tension. It's like noticing this non-identity.
Amazing.
And so, yeah, the precedent, or the antecedent of action is awareness of the tension. Because otherwise, what are you going to do? If you don't know what is different from what you think ought to be versus what is, you don't know what to do. So just to bring it to what you're saying, like you're saying, you want to help people create environments for themselves, right?
Yeah, that are fitting for them.
And it's just so fascinating to me when you bring it up with 1984, because of it's like, it gets to like, how important is an outside environment with respect to someone's area of control? Like within the past year,
Totally,
the whole notion of like a space of control has shrunk dramatically for many, most people on planet Earth. And so, like increasing the degree of noticing in that area.
Amazing. I mean, yeah, no, I agree. Like, that's why I don't even want to bring up politics or any of it on this thing, because it's like how much of that can we actually control at the end of the day? Like, we can control so much more in our day-to-day with the people we meet,
And I'll just say one final thing about that.
Please, dude.
I think that the more, just to bring it back to like what I'm hoping to do and educate people on, is the more, it's really a scale, it's a volume thing. And that's why it's like, it seems so simple, like the method, the approach, it's so simple, it's almost like nothing, but it's like the wider that these little tools, principles, tips can go, it really that's what makes the difference. It's like every student in every school, every person in every company, every team of every,
I love that. Because the problem, like, I mean, look at the education system. Like, dude, I would love, like, the education system is so messed up, I mean, like, these kids, it's literally like looking at it, at least from my point of view, I'm like, oh my God, like, it's not going to do anything for them. Someone save these kids, it's literally like that in my mind. I don't know how it is for you, but what are some of these tools and principles you have that people who are watching this could, like, take today to get started?
Learning the creative process. We learn so much in school about the scientific method, right? Don't we? Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, like it's a whole other thing, but Isaac Newton said there's no room in science for hypothesis, and meanwhile so many people teach. Okay, but anyway, we don't learn enough about the creative process. And that's really where, if any student of any age or any person in any position who wants to really create anything can begin by learning the creative process. And there's many different takes, and I'll just name a couple of them, and then it's up to you to learn whatever you can and do whatever you want. There's an approach to the creative process that what I just said about the desired end result, current reality, and the tension in between and the actions, that is a creative process. Like, you think about an artist who has a vision of, I'm going to put this image on this thing, it's not there yet, so I need to do it. That's the creative process. How do you allow for spontaneity and, jamming and improv? Like, for example, we were just doing jamming and improv.
Yeah.
Okay. that for so many people, this is like a critical tip, I guess. For so many people, they do jamming and improv in one way or another, whether it's music or something else, but they don't do the other side of it, which is actually then becoming the audience member to what they jammed and improv and applying discernment and saying, okay, how do we improve this now? What do we want to actually do with this? Let's take this same thing that we just created out of nowhere and, you know, put it one step further and one step forward and one step forward and actually iteration.
Dude, you're the best. Thanks for being here. Nice. How's it sound?
So good.
Pick it up on the spot. We're really gonna make it drop. Yeah, when the sun just rises. Yeah, we never gonna stop. Yeah, it's another day. We gonna do it today. Ay, super great. Ay, it's okay. We gonna make it up on the spot. Make it up on the spot. Make it up on the spot. Make it up. Oh my God, dude, that was so fun.
That was fun.
Make it up on the spot. I love you guys. Dude, amazing podcast.